I wanted to say shalom, but we are not even allowed to say this beautiful word on the day of Tisha B'Av. And why? Because that's what we're yearning for today. Shalom bein Adam lachavero. If we had shalom, we wouldn't have the duty to fast today. So there I came to teach just before Tisha B'Av in Tel Aviv, and she sat there with her jeans and t-shirt, and on her t-shirt with huge letters it was written, "Supergirls don't cry." And when I saw this, I thought to myself, that's our tragedy. During all the year we are being trained and coached that supergirls don't cry. And if there is something that we need this day more than any other thing, it's women's tears. Women that should sit and cry. It's true. During all the year I do this coaching. Stop complaining. Say thank you for what you have. Be happy with what you don't have. But on Tisha B'Av, it's a tragedy to be a supergirl. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees you once a year, this strong superwoman that is holding whenever it's so hard, she's crying. Wow. If the supergirl cries, I have to come and answer her tefillah. We are being in a world that crying is weakness, that crying is being primitive. We want to see all the people around us happy and smiling because it disturbs us to see people mourning, to see people complaining. Today, the supergirl cries. How do you do it? And Chazal teach us. The beautiful secret of this day, Tisha B'Av, is one tear. Only one tear. You won't find the word dma'ot, tears, in Megillat Eicha. Only dim'ah. Shifchi kanachal dim'ah. Pour like a lake, a tear. Hashem says to Rachel, min'i kolech mibechi ve'enaich midim'ah. Only one tear. What's the power of one tear? Wow, wow. Beit HaMikdash is being destroyed. Hashem calls Yirmiyahu and says, why don't you cry? I'm like a father that his son is getting married and dies in the middle of his chuppah and you are not crying. Go and call Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov. Shehem yod'im livkot. They know how to cry. Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, since when are they crying? They are the only ones in Jewish history that know what is one tear. When Avraham puts Yitzchak on the Mizbeach, the angels cry from the sky. They shed one tear. This tear falls into the eyes of Avraham. When he is trying to make the korban of Yitzchak, he is crying, and one tear of his eyes goes to the eyes of Yitzchak. Yitzchak becomes blind because of this one tear. And then because of this, he can bless Yaakov instead of Esav. Esav sees that Yitzchak gave the bracha to his brother. He sheds one tear. And because of this tear, he did not have the brachot, and Leah is watching him and saying, this will be my husband, this man with no bracha, and she sheds one tear. And when Rachel sees the one tear of her sister Leah, she sheds one tear. And when Hashem sees the one tear of Rachel, he cries. Hashem cries. במסתרים תבכה נפשי. חדר יש לקדוש ברוך הוא. Hashem has a room called מסתרים, hidden place. And he cries one tear. And when his one tear falls into the sea, we feel like an earthquake, like a tsunami. One tear. All you should do on the day of Tisha B'Av is knowing the power of one tear and do not clean it. The Benisch says that when the beautiful, handsome boys of Yehuda were taken by the Romans, their hands were tied. They could not clean their tear. Bachot tivke balayla, dim'ata al lechya ein la menachem. You should leave this tear going down your cheek with not cleaning it, and Hashem sees this tear, sees that there is no one that comforts you today. So you cry for your house. When you're on your way to the big house here, Be'ezrat Hashem, that will be built, cry for your own house, your own husband, your own children, your own hatred. One tear is enough. When you shed one tear, says the Ari Kadosh, on Tisha B'Av, it meets the one tear of Rachel. Do you know that Rachel in numbers, in Gematria, is twice dim'ah, tear. Dim'ah plus dim'ah is 238. Rachel. Only one tear. Only a woman knows how to cry. Sit on the floor, midnight, midday. Cry your heart out. One tear. And we will all see this new baby being born. ותחזנה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים.
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה, שאבא יראה יספור שמי. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה, שאבא יראה יספור שמי.
If you're sitting here watching this video today, it means that it's Tisha B'Av again. And that's not easy. Tisha B'Av is a time where we tend to feel pretty hopeless and very confused. If we haven't gotten it right until now, how are we supposed to get it right this time? If we haven't yet regained that clarity of Hashem, His miracles, His love in such a revealed, obvious way, how can we hope to do it now? The good news is that maybe we do have more power than we attribute to ourselves. Because if you think about it, the Mikdash was not that abstract. The Mikdash was really a reflection of a home. That the miracles that we know that defined the Mikdash began in the home of Sarah Imenu. And that home is a home that we can create in our hearts and share with others today and every day in our lives, to the best of our abilities and maybe even with a stretch of our abilities. What is a miracle? A miracle is Hashem going beyond what we know as nature. So since the world works with our actions creating Kavyachol Hashem's reactions, by us going beyond what's natural to us, making that stretch, we could elicit Hashem's going beyond nature and bringing us the miracles that we so yearn for in our lives, personally and nationally. Let's look at those miracles. Sarah was able to have the miracle of her bread staying fresh, the miracle that was mirrored by the lechem hapanim, by the bread in the mikdash. Sarah had her candles stay lit from one Shabbos to the next, similar to the Ner HaMa'aravi, mirrored in the mikdash by that eternal light. And Sarah merited to have the Shechina, Hashem's presence, hovering over her tent, the way we had in the Mikdash with the Anan HaKavod. So ladies, how did Sarah manage to get those miracles to be her reality? Because that must be a key to us living our lives with the home that Hashem so knows that we could have. And it wasn't that difficult. Rav Kerzner says that Sarah's miracles were deserved because Hashem was reacting to her motivation and the way she chose to live her life. Why did her bread stay fresh? Because she did. Because it's so easy in life to get stale, to just be from habit, to just be same old every day and every mission and every Shabbos in our lives. But Sarah didn't. Why did Sarah's candle stay lit? Because she stayed inspired. It's so easy to go to that right speech and have that aha moment. And where do we go with that inspiration? Sometimes just to the fridge. But Sarah had that ability to take that inspiration and make it work. Take that flicker of a flame and pass it on to someone else. And why did the Shechina, why did Hashem's presence hover over Sarah's tent? Because, in the words of Rabbi Kerzner, he just liked being there. Because she made him so welcome by emulating him, by representing him, by seeing people through his lens and loving them as a result. We have this unbelievable opportunity of bringing people home. And that's the Mikdash. We could ignite their freshness. We could ignite their inspiration. We could ignite their sense that Hashem is hovering over and waiting for them, always waiting for them. If we know that we have that potential, if the Mikdash is a reality in the way that we live our lives and we handle our situations and our circumstances and the relationships we have and the ones that we forge. Ladies, join me today in learning about 3 incredibly special women who managed to forge a connection with their Mikdash within and to bring a lot of people home with them. Pearl Benisch, alaiha shalom, I believe, represents the lechem hapanim. She never got stale. Even into her old age, she had a freshness and a vitality and a youth that inspired so many, that made everyone else believe in their potential even before they knew they had it. Henny Machlis, alaiha shalom, was that tent that had Hashem hovering over it. And everyone felt the same as HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. They just liked hanging out with her. She was their comfortable chair. And Rebbetzin Esther Jungreis, alaiha shalom, she was the flame that didn't go out. That she came with a mission out of the flames of the Holocaust and used those not to burn, not to rage, not to have a temper, but to ignite the spark of belief in so many, in a way that was beyond the belief, I believe even of herself, of knowing just how big her flame would grow and how warm it would make the world. And after we learn about those 3 visionaries of our time, we're going to have to challenge a belief that many of us have, that we can't be them. How could I be someone who really brings change to my own life, let alone others? I don't have the abilities of a Rebbetzin Jungreis, or the patience of a Henny Machlis, or the positivity of a Pearl Benisch. So maybe this whole Mikdash thing, I'm not cut out for it. I don't have that gene pool. I don't have the characteristics. We're going to meet someone named Lyanna, who without any background and without any education, she knew that she had a Mikdash within. And she knew that Hashem was the home that she always had to come back to because she knew something was missing without him. So she'll bring us to the place of creating a Mikdash in every level of our lives, just the way the women did who helped Lyanna in her journey, the women of her trip to Eretz Yisrael, the women who invited her into their homes in Brooklyn, New York. And when we're done today, hopefully, our bread will be fresher, and our candles will be that much brighter and last a lot longer. And Hashem will have the pride of knowing that we're the kids that love each other that he always wished for us to be. Pearl Benisch taught us all how to vanquish the dragon. The dragon for most of us is the hopelessness that we may feel, wondering how we could feel fresh again, living in a world that seems stale in a lot of ways and far from the goodness that we hope for. But Pearl Benisch did teach to vanquish that dragon with Amuna, with the belief that everyone and every day could always be something different.
My mother grew up in Krakow. She was born in Dembitz in November, middle of a big snowstorm. My mother lived right around the corner from Sarah Shanira and the seminary. Like here was the seminary one block, the next parallel block was Sarah Shanira's house, and my mother was on the corner. So she used to pass by and see my mother, and she used to call her down to come collecting money with her. My mother was 10 years old, 11 years old. Pay it, come. Ask your mother if you can come with me. And they would go collecting money up and down the steps, stuck her. Always, she had always another tzvek. But she had a lot of first cousins who survived. And some of them were like we were, and some of them were not religious, some were traditional. And they were always welcome to our home, to our simchas. They were treated with tremendous respect and kavod.
We always had an open house. I mean, we always had people eating by us. I remember my father was davening in the Shomer Shabbos, and one Friday night, he sent my brother home to tell my mother that we're having 2 guests. Somebody had gotten off the train at the Zman, a father and a son. They had gotten off the train and they were stuck. For Shabbos, they couldn't go any further. So no problem, he just sent my brother to tell my mother, we're having guests for Shabbos. And it wasn't a problem. He knew it wouldn't be a problem with her.
So tell me, what was most intriguing about Pearl Benisch's book for you?
One huge running thing that I got from it was how to live with Amuna. Everything that comes your way is just simply a hurdle for you to get over or a challenge. And that kind of concept and the way that I kind of see my life now was born from reading Pearl Benisch's book. Even if it's so serious and intense, like the Holocaust, I mean, you don't get more dramatic. How she said that she would like say the words of Tehillim as she was in the freezing cold snow and totally like riddled with illness and God knows what. She more saw it as a challenge to overcome, to make her greater, rather than something to make her suffocate. That was her single point that got her through. Like her Amuna just, there was nothing else saved her.
People would ask her questions like, Mrs. Benisch, how is it that you were able to keep your belief in God after having gone through such Gehenna? So she would say, my belief hasn't changed. There was evil in the world before the war. I saw the evil in the war. I see it now. What has changed? So why should my belief in God change?
I think her Amuna and her knowledge that Hashem loves her and everything he does is good, that's what gave her the simcha, the ability to be besimcha no matter what.
We had a very close relative of ours who went through the war, and when the war ended, he became irreligious. And my mother always used to say, you can't judge anybody who'd gone through the horrors, the Gehenna of the Holocaust. You can't judge them for losing their faith. And I remember when I was 14 years old, this man came to America for a visit. And during the 10 days that he was at our home, he made a complete turnaround. He became Shomer Shabbos. He went to Bes Medrash, he had a shir, he had a chavrusa every night.
And to what do you attribute that?
I don't know, he was just by us for Pesach. I don't remember them. My mother must have been, she was busy.
You were just
making
being
yanta.
yourself.
We were just being ourselves. When my parents first came to America, their first apartment was in a walk-up building in Williamsburg. And on the second floor lived a middle-aged couple. They already had a married daughter and a young teenage boy. And they were not from. but they were so nice to my parents. Mrs. Stein would babysit for us occasionally when my mother was in a pinch. And whenever we had an emergency, we'd go running down to the Steins. The 6 years that we lived there, during those 6 years, they became Shomer Shabbos.
Wow.
And I think, they were just so amazed by this couple who were from in spite of what they'd been through.
So you were driven to meet Pearl Benisch after reading her book.
Rabbi Naftali Schiff gave me her address, and I sent her a letter telling her how much she had changed my life. And then he arranged a phone call.
What did she say?
I just remember a lot of it was just love. It was as if I was she was speaking to her granddaughter. She didn't know I knew who I was, but I very much felt like we spoke for about half an hour. She just was showering me with love and care and advice. That was beautiful. So then I made a promise to myself that the moment I step into America, I would go straight to her house and go meet her. I think it was 5 years later, I finally went to America. I literally came off the plane and I went straight to her house to meet her. It was 10 o'clock at night. She didn't mind. I was there for about 2 hours. And she was just showering me with unbelievable advice and words of Torah and just love.
She believed in everybody, no matter what their level of Yiddishkeit was. And she encouraged us to love everybody and not to judge people.
I definitely felt as I was speaking to her that not only was she seeing the huge potential that I had, she was bringing that out in me. I just felt it. She did not know and has no idea of the impact she made on me. I only had a few interactions with her, but she formed me into the person that I am today, for sure.
My mother had a lot of groups coming here. All kinds of kiruv organizations would bring groups to her. She had a big impact on them. I could tell by the way they reacted, and they crowded around her and they asked her questions. I think they were just amazed at this woman who had to deal with all these faith issues during the Holocaust and how she came out of it. It was just amazing.
She created my desires to give and make an impact in the world without me even necessarily knowing. I read those books, I carried her lessons with me for life. And I'm going now back to London to work for an organisation for girls at risk in the Frum community.
When you see these girls that you work with, how do you view them through Mrs. Benisch's lens?
You're part of me, we're one. You're my sibling, you're my family, and I'll do whatever I can to try and help you. And I think that was a lot heavily from Pearl Benisch.
She spoke in Beth El to a group of 200 boys and girls who had also just found out they were Jewish. And you should see what these children looked like. These 200 children, boys and girls, 17, 18, 19, 20. At the end, my mother took out the whole group, and Beth El has this beautiful staircase in the front, and they lined up on the steps, and she stood herself right in the middle of the group, in the front, the second step, with all the 200 children around her, boys and girls, and she wanted a group picture. And as she's standing there with all these children, two Babova ladies, Hasidic women, passed by, and they knew my mother. She was very well known, and they tell her, Petschke, sag mir, du sind deine Einiglich? Petschke, tell me, are these your grandchildren? And she looked up at the woman and she says, yes, these are my grandchildren. Because that's how she felt about every Jew. Didn't matter what they looked like. She loved everyone, and they were all her children and her sisters and brothers.
We have children. We have grandchildren. We have great-grandchildren. Isn't that great? Isn't that some Henny Machlis? Didn't he give us so much joy? I just pray, Hashem, you tested us enough. Don't test them anymore.
I remember as a child seeing my father cry the day his father died. And I asked him what the saddest thing that he was going through was, and he said, it's hard not to be someone's child anymore. Benisch made us all feel like someone's child. And children need to go home, and they need to feel that there is a mother caring for them, who always wants them, who always loves them, who always accepts them so unconditionally and openly and nurturingly. And that was Henny Machlis. Henny Machlis gave us the home that we all need. The home that just always has that extra piece of chicken. The home that always has that hug. And the way that she was able to feel and do and be so much to so many is because she connected herself to a limitless source of love. She knew that she was the proud daughter of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he was always over her tent and loving her throughout and giving her energy that was far beyond the energy that she could have generated on her own. So let's look at the life and the home and the warmth of Henny Machlis and get a taste of what a real home could feel like.
My mother used to say that every Jew has a spark. It could be there's a lot of dark spots, but in every Jew there's a spark. Take that spark and make believe that the person is that whole spark, because they all have a beautiful light to them. And that's what my mother, one of her beautiful qualities, that she was able to see in every person the real spark, and to see that every person above what a human being could see.
She was very loving, very sweet, very accepting. She knew exactly what to say. My husband always says that she had like a little chutzpah, but it wasn't really chutzpah, but he said Ima could get away with saying anything, because she would like just say it in the right way, or even to like people that are completely secular, she said also in a very non-judgmental. She was extremely non-judgmental. Everyone was okay in her books. So like if you were religious, not religious, Jewish, not Jewish, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Hasidish, it was like, you're okay in my books, I see you, and people felt it.
Well, she loved people. So she would meet someone and say, hi, Henny Machlis, right? And she would just have this big smile and big warm welcome, and very unassuming. And she would share of herself and really care for people. So
on Shabbos, it was always very exciting, because there were like between 80 and 120 people coming for the meals, every type of person you could imagine. Yeshiva guys, seminary girls, tourists.
Baal Teshuvas, people who were interested in converting to Judaism, or even not interested in converting to Judaism. The door was open to just anyone.
I'm from California, San Diego, and I was a professional swimmer in high school and happy-go-lucky. I started keeping a little bit, and what I was keeping was not Shabbos, but I was keeping to go to shul. I had a scholarship to go to San Diego University, and I'm like, Mom, I want to go to Israel. I want to go to Israel, please. And she wouldn't let me. She said, only if you can defer your scholarship. And I found Bar Ilan University, one-year program. That's when I met Rabbi Machlis.
He was teaching on the program.
He was the beginner's program. That was like my first rabbi. Rabbi Machlis said, you're all on this Shabbos invited to my house. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? You're not expecting anything, and you walk in and you think that you're gonna be the guest and we're gonna get so much attention here, and then I can talk and we're friends, and you open up, there's like another 60 of you, 70 of you, and you're like, we're probably in the wrong place. And then you see Rabbi Machlis come in, and Henny Machlis come in. She came from the side. Shalom, oh my God, really, really happy.
There was something about being in that house and in her presence that was just so comfortable. No judgments. Like, welcome, you're a human being. Welcome to our home. This is your place. And that's really what it was like for everybody. I remember once she came to our house to visit, and there was a gardener working in the back, and he had an Arab worker. So she offered him something to drink, and she was talking to him. She said, tell me, what's your name? And he says, my name is Chaim. She said, Chaim? What do you mean your name is Chaim? Chaim's a Jewish name. He says, oh yeah, well, my dad is an Arab, but my mother's Jewish. My mother-in-law couldn't believe it. She said, you're Jewish. Do you know that you're Jewish? He says, I'm Jewish. He says, you're Jewish. And then she calls me, Avram, quick, bring your tefillin, right? And that was her, she wanted to give him the gift of a mitzvah, and that was her interest in helping other people. Anything she had, she would share. Like, she didn't really have a sense of, me versus you. It's kind of like us. anything I have, if you need it, take it. She taught me so many times that another person's physical needs they become your spiritual needs.
I worked on my relationship with the Machlises from then on, because I said, this is what I want. I knew this is what I needed for myself. And I would go, and after the meals, I would do the dishes till 2 a.m. But I got something back, because they would stay up with me. I was there doing those dishes, cleaning up, because I wanted to hear about them, to know about them, and ask questions. And Henny would say it all the time, I feel like you're my daughter, I feel like you're my first daughter, because I was older than Yocheved.
So she say that to all her guests?
I don't know, but I didn't care. She said that to me. That was like the world.
How did you see her real Amuna play out?
I remember once, it was a Friday, and there was some type of chicken shortage, I think, in Jerusalem. I don't remember exactly. It was a long time ago. And Ima was just totally, indifferent, nonchalant, like, no worries, whatever. We'll make do with whatever we have. We'll feed them other things. Hashem will take care of it. I don't know, a few hours later, someone shows up. I don't remember the details, but just someone shows up with like a couple of cases of chickens. He was like, oh, okay, here are the chickens. Let's put them in the oven, Let's just get them into the oven, And I remember thinking, one of the things that was the most amazing part of that story is that it didn't faze Ima. She just lived with Hashem. She was like totally she said, oh, Hashem's going to take care of it. It wasn't like, wow. You're just like, what do you mean? If I ask you for a glass of water, or if I ask you to pass me the fork, I can assume you'll pass it to me. If you ask God, Hashem, can you pass the chicken? He'll pass it. It's like, well, of course that's what's going to happen.
Your mother's book was unbelievable. And so many women reading it would say, how could I ever be Henny Machlis? What would your mother's message to those women be?
Everyone could do it their way. There are no two Rebbetzin Machlises. There are no two Moshe Rabbeinus. There's only one of each person, and everyone is in a unique way.
I want to read you something that Ima said. So, my dear girls, remember to love yourself, to know that there was never anyone like you, and there never will be. You have unique talents, personality, wisdom, character traits, looks, abilities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to use to shine your specific light in this world. Then, remember to empower all of your friends and the whole world. Remember that Hashem loves you like His only child, and everything you are and you experience is only to draw you closer to Him. Remember to speak to Him always, to achieve the clarity you need to fulfill your purpose in this world by maximizing your potential. And remember not only to do what you can, but more than you can, because one more chesed will bring the geula. And remember, I love all of you.
Meeting Henny Machlis' children and getting a taste of her home left us feeling what the Ananei HaKavod must have been. Those clouds of glory hovering over us, giving us that feeling of Hashem's love, of His nurturing, of knowing that we are all of His kids. When we're all His kids, there is no I and there is no you. We all do just become one. And there's another way that's manifested in all of us. That we're one in the sense that we share a flame. And when I give of that flame to you, we know about flames that they don't get extinguished. They just keep growing and stretching beyond us and staying illuminated and illuminating others. That, ladies, was the gift of the legacy of Rebbetzin Esther Jungreis. Rebbetzin Jungreis brought that flame out of the cinders of the Holocaust. And she proved that inspiration can live on and beyond just about anything. And she didn't let people have it easy when they didn't believe it themselves. And we have a chance now to get a taste of it and make it our own. Let's see.
So I grew up in a home that had a very traditional Jewish connection, but was not that observant. I was bat mitzvahed on a Sunday in an Orthodox shul. We didn't keep kosher, but we didn't eat like the real treif, but we didn't follow all of the laws. I did go to Hebrew school. I was able to read Hebrew. So there was a connection there, but it certainly wasn't, a full observance. I was very fortunate. I went to Harvard as an undergraduate, and I had a very interesting career that took me to Washington, D.C., to Jefferson City, which is the Missouri capital. I took a position as legal counsel in the Missouri State Senate for the Democratic minority leader. But after a year, a position opened up because of term limits in the legislative district where I had grown up in St. Louis, and I was elected as a state representative. While I was doing all of this legislative work, I was studying with an Aish rabbi in St. Louis, Rabbi Grunberger, and he gave me a copy of the Rebbitzins book, The Committed Life, and it really was transformative for me. Somehow when I turned the pages of that book, it just resonated with me. She would have these anecdotes about people, and I would think, this is the way life should be lived. This is the way I want to live my life.
About 20 years ago, and it was Christmas Eve, and I met the Rebbitzin. That was it. I could not get over the Rebbitzin. She's unbelievable. I just could not get over it. She was, just such a, like a powerhouse.
I was just a regular, secular girl living in New York, and I had a cousin who found out about the singles party. So as we're there, they tell us that there's a lecture that you have to hear before you go to the party. And I'm sitting there, and she's talking about the Parsha, and she's relating it to modern day times. And it just so happened to be that Parsha was exactly what I was going through in my life at that moment. I just couldn't believe what I had heard.
Every Tuesday night I would go listen to her speak, and her soft voice sounded to me like a hummingbird singing a sacred song. Because her teachings, they were so easy to connect with, but they were really deep.
She was incredibly warm, and I think there was something about how she held your hand and touched you, and how she looked at you and focused on you and held you, and I think there was like some kind of warmth that you immediately felt like, you were the only person in the room, and that she really, really loved you, which she did. She loved every Jewish neshama.
She had an uncanny sense of perception when it came to people. My mother taught me at a very early age that if you can't help somebody, the least you can do is feel for them.
She would literally stand on her feet until 1 o'clock in the morning, until every person that had a problem or was looking for a shidduch or whatever had a chance. And these were acts of kindness that she did herself.
There'd be another person wanting to talk to her. She would see that, and she would take her hand and hold the other person as if to say, 1 minute, and I'll be with you. And that's such a kindness that a person shouldn't feel that they're just standing there being ignored. It was little things that she always knew how to be kind and good and understanding.
My mother was, and Rachel's mother, the same thing, both had terminal cancer. And the Rebbitzin would call both of our mothers every Shabbos, just to give them like another holiday.
These calls were so meaningful to my mother. She really looked forward to it all week. Even when my mom was sick in the hospital, the Rebbitzin would call her. That was the kind of chesed that she could do, even though she lived her life on a global platform, speaking around the world, writing books. She was famous in the Jewish and non-Jewish world. She could take those moments to reach out to a human being on a personal level.
How did she get her energy? She would recharge by being with people, by speaking, by davening. I never saw her waste her time. If she'd be sitting down, she had a tehillim, she had a sefer, she'd be preparing for a class. She would always say, you must accomplish something every single day.
So a couple years later, she had written another book. It was called Life is a Test. And the Rebbitzin came to St. Louis to speak at an event around her book. And she wrote an inscription that I would like to share, which said, to my dear Rachel, may Hashem be with you and guide you to your soulmate. Your mother is watching over you. Never forget. Much love, Esther Jungreis. Well, that same night, The Rebbitzin pulled me aside at the end and she said, "There's someone very special I want you to meet." And she told me all about Barry.
I was 50, I was not married. The Rebbitzin never gave up on me. I mean, she knew me for 20 years, and she never gave up on me. Most people gave up on me. Everyone gave up on me. Like, Terry, you're never going to get married. It's just not going to happen, you know. But the bottom line was the Rebbitzin never did. Rachel and I got engaged, and then the Rebbitzin came to St. Louis. You know, my mother passed away, so I said, "Would you walk me down the aisle?" She said, "No, I can't walk you down the aisle." She said, "But I'll walk behind you." And I always used to tease her. I said, "You were walking behind me because you were afraid I was going to run away."
She did not tell me when we were dating or when she first introduced us that his mother had also been sick and passed away, and that she had had a very similar connection to Barry's mother that she had had with my mother. And before both of our mothers passed away, each of them had asked her to connect us with a Jewish soulmate. And then she connected us to each other. And when she came to the wedding, she said that our mothers were dancing in the heavens. And we always felt the power of those words.
That's what we all said at that wedding. These mothers are dancing in Shemayim because not only have their children connected, but they have Yiddish grandchildren who are going to know about Hashem and knowing how to daven and becoming the next generation that they never would have been.
There's so many people that would call her our Torah Babi because she made their shidduch, and now they have children and grandchildren who are from because of her.
The Rebbitzin gave us a blessing on our marriage night, our wedding night for children. And again, we were a little bit older. You never know what can happen in life. But very quickly, Baruch Hashem, we had a son.
So whenever I look at the kids, I always think of her and I think of how proud she'd be.
She introduced me to my husband. She made us frum. We have 6 beautiful children, all in yeshivas and Beis Yaakovs. And she spent her entire life doing this to zillions of people.
What do you think that she'd be proudest of about your children? Anything that they do or about who they are?
Well, we celebrate Shabbat, to come to the table, to say the brachas, to light the candles, to have my daughters watching. That feels very good and very right to us.
Beautiful. How would you define her mission?
The Rebbitzin went through the Holocaust. And then when she got to America, all these people were not only not following Judaism, but they were, marrying non-Jews. They were not keeping kosher. And so she said there was a spiritual Holocaust in the United States or around the world. She wanted to make to change that.
When my mother was just a little girl, she began her mission in this world. And she took a place of terrible Gehenna, and instead of sitting in the darkness and being angry, she came to this country and she learned from her parents that you have a choice in life. You can either sit in the choshech and be angry and upset about what life deals, or you can light a candle. And my mother told us, always light a candle wherever you go, never sit in choshech.
There was no stopping the Rebbitzin. And look, just in my family, my brother and I, we both grew up secular. We probably did things we weren't supposed to do, and the Rebbitzin really brought us back.
When people would start to become frum and discover, she would say, now it's your turn to invite somebody to your house for Shabbos or teach somebody. And they would say, but Rebbitzin, I don't know enough. And my mother would say, whatever you know, you share.
One kind word, one piece of knowledge, just saying one thing to another Jew, a little spark could ignite and become a flame.
Baruch Hashem, we light 6 candles on Shabbos, and these are always at the center. The Rebbitzin presented these to my husband and me on our engagement. It brings her presence to our Shabbat.
Do you have a personal prayer that introduces Shabbos for you?
I always say the Hebrew names of each of my children and my husband, and I pray for their well-being, and I pray that I can continue to grow our home in a Torah way.
You must feel a tremendous void in your life now. without her. It sounds like she was just such a force.
Big void. She was just, but the great part about the Rebbetzin is that she was so prolific in the speeches and all that she wrote and she did that you never forget her. Rachel and I speak all the time and say that we had the honor to meet someone of this caliber.
She was bringing me to the connection to God and to His mercy and to His protection. And there was nothing like it. It was extraordinary.
When my mother became ill this past year, it was a very difficult year when we heard the terrible news. And I looked at my mother and I saw 2 tears roll down her cheeks. And she said, I have so much more that I want to do and so much more that I'd like to teach. Can I still teach Torah? Because I have a nation waiting. I have my people waiting, and I love to teach Torah. That was her only question.
So listen to me, my wonderful people, my sisters, my brothers, my kinderlich. I'm a great grandmother, so oh my kinderlich. I want to leave you, all of you, with a bracha. Hashem should be with you. Hashem should give you the wisdom in your heart to understand who you are. You are Malach Hashem, Malachi Shabbos, you are the angels of Shabbos. Never forget your legacy, never forget your Torah. Remember my father's words. After he discovered nobody's left, no Einsach, only one thing I ask of you, Hashem. All my children and my grandchildren should remain with Torah. That's the only thing that counts. You say this in Shemaim in the heavens above, are saying, please children, don't forget that, remain with Torah. So I want to give everybody brachas to Klal Yisrael. Don't forget who you are, where you came from. Hashem should give you nachas, kinderlach and einiglach, and iweiniglich, children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Eiskim b'Torah mitzvahs. I thank you all for listening, and sei es gewünscht.
That light of Rebbetzin Jungreis is a light that lives on in the homes of so many women who light her candlesticks, who ignite the souls of their children, those children who learn the Torah that has become their life because it was life to Rebbetzin Jungreis. 3 phenomenal women, seeing the freshness of a Pearl Benisch, the student of a Sarah Schneerer, who teaches us what it means to keep going and forging ahead as those Benos Yaakov. We saw the home and the nurturing and the graciousness of a Henny Machlis and the spirit that she had that so many felt. And we saw that inspiration, that incredible energy of a Rebbetzin Jungreis. Where do we go with it all? We go to Brooklyn, New York, to a group of women just like us, women who are busy baking their own bread, keeping things lit, keeping that inspiration, and realizing that it's not enough to just keep it in here, that there are people that deserve it, that need it as much as they do, as much as we do. They find a girl named Lyanna, and that name says it all. Anna, me? Where's it coming from? Can I relate to those greats? Can I be that visionary? Can I create the Mikdash? And the answer, ladies, is yes. That Mikdash is our inheritance. It's our right to perpetuate and to pass on to others. Lyanna began her journey in a little town in Azerbaijan, and we begin by asking her just what it felt like to be that soul among the people there and not realizing how much she was missing. Let's see.
We were hiding the fact that we were Jewish. I remember on Fridays sometimes my grandmother would light candles, and on holidays she would. We couldn't understand why she was doing this. We were completely secular. We thought that she just had her own agenda. That's how she grew up, and this is something cultural. We didn't think it had anything to do with religion itself. I came to the United States when I was almost 18. It was difficult for us, for my parents especially. We didn't know the language. We had to learn. Our community, we have a very small Jewish community where my parents live. So we tried to go for holidays here and there, but there wasn't really much of an influence. And after I got my degree, I went to work at the Immigration Center as a fingerprint technician, and then I transferred to Customs, and that's when I met Heshi.
I guess seeing me with my yarmulke on and knowing that I was religious, she would come over and we would talk about, Jewish, studies, Jewish subjects. It was interesting in these things, whatever I felt that she would be able to handle, we would speak about.
We had invited her a number of times previously, and she never accepted, and Sukkot's time. It was Shabbos of Chol HaMoed, and she said yes, and we made room for her, and it was wonderful.
She came over to me one day and she said, you know what, I heard about this trip to Israel with this group. You think I should go? It's for women that want to become, more religious, whatever, to see the country.
So, without knowing anyone else on the trip,
gutsy. Was that scary?
It was. But I thought, I'm gonna just go and meet all these wonderful Jewish women and maybe connect somehow.
So when I first met Lyanna, we were close to closing the registration for our trip. And right away I was stricken with her chen, I would say her grace, her poise, her presence, and her genuine desire to learn about Judaism. And she felt that if she came on this trip, she would get that opportunity to share it with her kids, to have it for herself, but I don't think she realized how much she would get for herself. I think she was really motivated that her kids should get what she didn't get a chance to.
The moment that I landed in Israel, it hit me. This sense of, okay, this is home. I'm home, that's it.
It was a great group of women. They were just very open and inspired. And, the Brooklyn women that we take are mostly all of Russian background.
We loved Lyanna on the trip. She was an absolute delight. She was just fun and easy and very, 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 very open and very, very receptive. It just impacted her so. She really wanted to get it and take it with her. And she did. She did.
We were there for 8 days, and we had just one event left, and that's when this terrible tragedy happened. We just saw a bus just carrying down backwards. We knew there was no way for us to dodge it, so we both got hit. What happened was the bus hit me, and then I went under the wheel of the bus, and it dragged me all the way until it hit the nearby building. The ambulance was there within about a couple of minutes. A man, he knew that he was asking me constantly questions to keep me, conscious. He said, "We don't want you to panic, but the wheel of the bus is still on top of you and we can't get you out." So I had to lie there, bleeding, broken bones and everything. I was not aware of how bad it was. I wasn't even aware of what happened to me. In my mind, I thought that I had a broken leg. I didn't know what happened.
We, got to the hospital and they were wheeling Lyanna in on the stretcher, and she looked frightening, and we were basically beside ourselves. We just didn't know, and we were davening, and it was just a shock.
The doctors didn't think there was anything they could do. They said that the injuries that I suffered were catastrophic. I went to Hadassah in Jerusalem. I couldn't move for 2 months. I couldn't do anything at all. I was basically just pinned to my bed. So I needed the help. I mean, the doctors weren't even sure if I was going to survive, if I was ever going to walk. And thank you, Hashem, he brought me to a team of brilliant, brilliant doctors.
So when she woke up, I was able to be by her bed, and I was crying.
I woke up and I saw Soulmates was standing in a corner crying, looking at me. And I thought to myself, why is she crying? I'm okay. I'm okay. There was this peace.
And she said to me that she didn't know why I was crying because she felt so peaceful and she felt Hashem was with her and Hashem was saving her. And why was I so sad? And that's when I knew that the whole trip affected her so amazingly, because a week before that, when she wasn't on the trip, she would never have spoken like that.
I had this peace in my heart. I was grateful that I'm alive. I knew Hashem was with me. I was okay.
So I actually have some friends that, like, let's say made Aliyah, live in Israel, and I would just get like certain messages through, you know, I went to see Lyanna, I brought her a sandwich, and I really feel like she got to see the best of Klal Yisrael. Like, she's in a hospital bed, she's not a frum woman, she wasn't really exposed to a lot of religious people before, and this is what she sees, like, you know, that someone's coming, people are taking care of her all the time, and I feel like she sees that, and then Hashem sees us taking care of each other, and it was such a, like, that to me was like, wow, like, I could see why she would come home and want to keep Shabbos.
When I was in Israel, I felt something was changing inside of me. I felt like I was finally finding myself. I knew that there was no way I could come back the same. After I woke up in a hospital, I made that pact with myself to go on with this, and just try to reach a higher spiritual level.
And it was like unbelievable change. She started telling me all the things that she was doing, you know. She starts asking me questions like, I had orange juice and oatmeal for breakfast today, and I goes, does the Yala Milchya cover the bar nefashos, or do I? Wow. And I say to her, I go like, who are you? It was like unbelievable. She was learning how to read and to daven. She gave me such chizuk. It's unbelievable.
I read my Siddur in Hebrew now.
Wow.
I mean, I'm very slow, very slowly, but I still read it, yeah.
You were so worried about the kids. How did they take to all of this?
I pulled them out of public schools right away, put them both in yeshivas, and I saw the difference in them. So.
What was it like standing at your son's bar mitzvah, feeling that your body was yours again and that your children were home the way you wanted them to be? What was that?
Happy, pride, I don't know, all of these things. I mean, indescribable feeling. The people were there for me, and, you know, we danced with Soulmates, I danced a little with Eti, you know, and it gave me so much happiness.
It's definitely just about us trying, giving over, caring, sharing. Hashem is in charge of kind of having that wheel take it to whatever level it's going to. You just have to be a link in the chain and share.
Developing these wonderful relationships with these women is so uplifting and so inspiring, and really makes my life very meaningful, and also makes my family appreciate different people, and, you know, what you can accomplish by just being a nice person and talking to people and bringing them to your home, showing them the beauty of a Shabbos and the beauty of Yiddishkeit.
How have you seen it impact your family?
Well, I remember one of the first Shabbatons that we did at our house, which we, at some point, I think at the Malcolm must have had about 150 people. And my son, who was a teenager then, he said, "Mommy, this was the best Shabbos of my life." I said,
Wow.
"What?" You know, I wasn't able to give you any attention. I was busy with all the people and with everything. He said, you know, just to see how much they appreciate what we have all the time changed my life. And he was 16, so.
Lyanna, the women that are watching us today, they're sitting in the audience and it's Tisha B'Av. And it's the day that we lost the temple because we weren't good enough at loving each other. What would you want to tell those women as your message from your experience about being loved and coming home?
We should love each other. There should be this love for each other. I can't stress enough the love that I have for my fellow Jewish women. Make a connection. It's so easy. We're women. What's the worst that can happen? Make a connection.
Lyanna, if you could go back to that little house in Azerbaijan and you could see your grandmother taking her candles out on a Friday, what would you want her to know?
I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to thank her. Thank her for teaching us. Although we didn't understand it and we dismissed it, there was something inside of us. It was always there. We just needed someone else to open it. That's all. So I guess the whole Shabbos experience started with my grandmother.
Seeing her and knowing her story is got to give chizuk to anybody.
If you can reach out to another fellow Jew, just do it.
We all have what it takes to be that home, to have our bread stay fresher, to have our light stay lit, and to have that awareness of Hashem in our lives constantly and consistently, and feel His love through every stage that we go through every up and every down, knowing that He's with us. And then we have the ability to create a difference this Tisha B'Av by deciding that we have enough light to share with so many, that we could bring our home to be their reality in the workplace by a gesture, a kind face, an invitation, offering someone to learn with us, just giving whatever we have in us to light that next neshama that much more. We have the ability to remember that we are the home that we could bring to others. And by offering it to others, we become ourselves. We could get it right this year. We could give HaKadosh Baruch Hu the home that He has been waiting for us to give Him back for so long, by recognizing that the home that we have, the home that we live in, the home that we breathe, is the oxygen that'll keep His children alive and going. And it'll be the air that we breathe in the Mikdash tomorrow, Mir Tashem. We'll see you there.
Oh l'soichatachim.